A controversial question haunts every war film fan. Does Hollywood glorify violence or expose its deepest wounds? The answer lies in these 15 pictures. They reject heroism, they deny comfort. They force you to stare into an abyss where survival itself becomes a curse. These are not recruitment tools. These are warnings carved in celluloid. Welcome to the darkest corner of American cinema. No flags fly here, only ghosts. Number 15. The Thin Red Line, 1998. Why would a film filled with beautiful jungle photography be called one of the darkest war movies ever made? Because beauty makes the carnage worse. Terrence Malick's meditation on Guadalcanal rejects every heroic structure Hollywood ever built. No clear villain, no triumphant score, just men dissolving into existential dread, while palm trees sway in paradise. The darkness here is philosophical. Private Wit swims toward light but finds only a machine gun. Colonel Tall watches his humanity evaporate rank by rank. The film's true horror emerges from its voiceovers. Soldiers asking why they fight, why they kill, why the world eats its own children. One scene captures everything. American soldiers massacre a Japanese encampment not with rage, but with mechanical emptiness. A wounded enemy soldier cries for water. No one gives it. The camera holds on his dying face for an eternity. Then a bird sings. Malick understands that the darkest war films don't show hell. They show heaven ignoring hell. You will leave this movie unable to trust a sunset. That is the point. Hollywood never made a war film more quietly devastating. The violence is brief. The aftermath is forever. Number 14. American Sniper, 2014. Can a patriotic war film also be one of the most psychologically brutal ever produced? Clint Eastwood's answer is a sneer wrapped in an American flag. On its surface, American Sniper celebrates Chris Kyle, the deadliest sniper in U.S. history. But look closer. Watch his eyes. He returns from Iraq and cannot stop seeing children with grenades. He stands in a gas station, and a stranger's drill sounds like an IED. He holds his infant son, but his hands remember pulling a trigger 160 times. The darkness here lives in the garage scene, Kyle gripping a pistol while his wife begs him to put it down. This is a man who survived 4 tours, only to drown in a parking lot. Eastwood films the war with clinical detachment. The real horror begins when Kyle comes home. His body sits on a couch. His mind stays in Fallujah. The final irony murders you. Kyle was killed not by an enemy sniper, but by a fellow veteran he tried to help. The movie ends with real funeral footage. Then silence. No credits music. Nothing. Hollywood has made louder anti-war statements. None felt this cold. American Sniper doesn't ask you to mourn Chris Kyle. It asks you to see what survives after the last bullet leaves the chamber. The answer is nothing. Number 13. The Hurt Locker, 2008. What happens when war becomes the only place a man feels alive? The Hurt Locker does not chase glory. It studies addiction. Jeremy Renner's Sergeant William James walks toward bombs the way other men walk toward shelter, and that is what makes the film so disturbing. Iraq is not filmed as a battlefield here. It is filmed as a pressure cooker where every pile of trash, every parked car, every staring face could explode. The darkness is not just in the bombs. It is in James himself. He is brilliant, reckless, almost superhuman under pressure, but completely broken when peace arrives. The supermarket scene says everything. After surviving death again and again, he stands in an American grocery aisle, lost among cereal boxes, unable to understand ordinary life. That is the quiet horror. War has not only damaged him, it has become the only language he understands. The film's most brutal sequence involves a young boy whose body may have been turned into a bomb. Whether the boy is who James thinks he is almost does not matter. The suspicion alone poisons him. The Hurt Locker argues that modern war does not always end with a flag-covered coffin. Sometimes it ends with a man going back because home feels more dangerous than the battlefield. Number 12, The Big Red One, 1980. Why does a war film starring Mark Hamill feel like a medieval pilgrimage through hell? Because Samuel Fuller actually fought in W2. The director of The Big Red One served with the 1st Infantry Division from North Africa to Czechoslovakia. He carried a rifle. He saw the camps. And his movie is a fever dream of memory. Lee Marvin plays the sergeant, a man who stabbed a German soldier with a soap bar in WWI. Now he leads fresh-faced boys through Sicily, Omaha Beach, and the Bulge. The darkness here isn't dramatic, it's quotidian. Men die while eating rations. A soldier laughs, then takes a bullet in the neck. The camera never lingers on heroics. But then comes Falkenau, the liberation of a concentration camp. Fuller films it like a newsreel from his own nightmares. Piles of bodies, living skeletons. American soldiers vomit. The sergeant stares. No music, no tears, just a long, terrible silence. Then they move on because that's what soldiers do. The restored director's cut adds 20 minutes of this unblinking horror. The Big Red One is not a movie about war. It is a movie about surviving war, only to realize you brought the war home inside your ribs. Fuller made his darkness personal. That is why it cuts deepest.
Number 11. Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006. Can a Hollywood war film make you mourn the enemy more than the victory? Clint Eastwood's Letters from Iwo Jima does exactly that, and it does it without sentimentality. This is not the heroic American version of Iwo Jima. This is the island from inside the caves, from the eyes of Japanese soldiers who already know they are being buried alive. The darkness here is inevitability. These men are not marching toward triumph. They are waiting for annihilation. Ken Watanabe's General Kuribayashi understands the war is lost, yet he must command men to die slowly in tunnels carved into volcanic rock. Young soldiers write letters they may never send. They talk about wives, children, food, fear. Then artillery turns their world into dust. The most horrifying scenes are not the battles. They are the suicide orders. Soldiers clutch grenades to their chests because surrender has been turned into shame. One explosion after another echoes through the caves like doors closing forever. Eastwood strips away propaganda until only human terror remains. No side feels clean. No death feels necessary. Letters from Iwo Jima is dark because it forces you to watch men who were called enemies become sons, husbands, and ghosts. By the end, victory feels less like justice and more like a mountain of bodies with different uniforms.
Number 10, born on the 4th of July, 1989. What is darker than dying in war? Living through it, and coming home to a country that spits on you. Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July takes Ron Kovich's autobiography and turns it into a 2-hour crucifixion. Tom Cruise plays Kovich as a golden boy who enlists because John Wayne told him to. He returns from Vietnam in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the chest down. His mother cannot look at him. His neighbors call him a baby killer. He drinks himself into a VA hospital where men lie in their own filth for days. The darkness here is institutional. America didn't just lose the war, it abandoned its wounded. The film's most brutal scene has no explosions. Kovich lies on a gurney in a Mexican veterans hotel. A prostitute tries to help him achieve an erection. He cannot. He weeps. She holds him. That is the whole war reduced to a man who cannot feel his own body. Stone films the massacre at Tra Bong as a fever nightmare. American soldiers killing civilians, including children. But that's not the darkness. The darkness is Kovich returning to that village in his mind every night for 40 years. Born on the 4th of July, argues that the worst war wounds are invisible. Hollywood made it as a mainstream studio picture. It remains the most punishing July 4th tradition you will never celebrate again. Number 9, Beasts of No Nation, 2015. How does Hollywood capture the mind of a child soldier without exploiting his pain? Cary Fukunaga found an answer. Film the horror through his eyes, then refuse to look away. Beasts of No Nation follows Agu, a boy in an unnamed African country, who watches his father's throat get slit. Then he joins a guerrilla unit led by the commandant. The darkness is seduction. The commandant loves Agu. He calls him son. He gives him a rifle. He also beats him. He also molests him. The film shows the rape obliquely, but the aftermath is clear. Agu crying in a ditch while his new family sleeps. Then he fights. He shoots a woman carrying a baby. He does not hesitate. The baby dies too. Fukunaga films all this in sweltering natural light. No hero's journey, no redemption arc. Agu eventually escapes, but his face remains a mask of dead tissue. The final shot is a close-up. He stares at the camera for 30 seconds. No tears, no smile, just a child who has seen so much death that life became a foreign language. Netflix financed this film as an original production. It is Hollywood's only serious attempt to dramatize the African child soldier epidemic. The attempt succeeded. You will never unsee Agu's eyes.
Number 8. Saving Private Ryan, 1998.
Why does a movie that begins with an elderly veteran collapsing at a grave count as one of the darkest war films ever made? Because Steven Spielberg spent the first 24 minutes forcing you to die on Omaha Beach. Saving Private Ryan revolutionized war cinema with its handheld camera, desaturated color, and sound design that made bullets feel like dental surgery. The landing sequence is not action. It is a slaughterhouse. Men drown under 60-pound packs. A soldier picks up his severed arm and walks away confused. Another kneels in the sand praying while his intestines slide through his fingers. Spielberg films it all without a hero in sight. Captain Miller shivers uncontrollably. He cannot stop his hands from shaking. The darkness continues through the film's second half, a slow knife fight that lasts 2 minutes but feels like drowning. A German soldier whispers, "Shh, shh, shh," while pushing a blade into Mellish's heart. That whisper is the sound of evil being casual. Then the German walks past Upham, who freezes on the stairs. Upham does nothing. He lets his friend die. That cowardice is the film's true horror. Saving Private Ryan argues that war doesn't make men brave. It reveals which men are already broken. Hollywood gave Spielberg a blank check. He made a 2-hour accusation.
Number 7. Apocalypse Now, 1979.
What is the darkest journey Hollywood ever filmed? A boat, a river, and a colonel who became a god. Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now strips away every illusion about war and empire and sanity. Captain Willard travels up the Nung River to assassinate Colonel Kurtz, who has gone native and now runs a murder cult in Cambodia. But the journey is the darkness. Robert Duvall's Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore loves the smell of napalm in the morning. He also surfs during firefights. A helicopter attack plays Wagner. Then the Do Lung Bridge sequence, a battle fought by ghosts. Willard meets soldiers who do not know who they are fighting or why. They just keep shooting. The darkness reaches its fever pitch at Kurtz's compound. Heads on stakes, body parts arranged like sculpture. Kurtz whispers about horror. He shows Willard a water buffalo being hacked to death by villagers. The scene goes on too long. That's the point. Coppola lost his mind making this movie. Hurricane damage, heart attacks, Marlon Brando showing up obese. The finished film feels like a fever you cannot break. Apocalypse Now does not argue anything. It simply shows a man named Kurtz who says, "You have no right to judge me." Then Willard kills him. Then Willard becomes him. The horror, the horror.
Number 6. The Deer Hunter, 1978.
Can a wedding last longer than a war? Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter spends 50 minutes at a Russian Orthodox wedding before sending its characters to Vietnam. That long celebration is the trap. You love these men. You drink with them. You dance. Then you watch them play Russian roulette in a bamboo cage submerged in river water. Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and John Savage are steelworkers from Pennsylvania who capture a German soldier in Vietnam and then find themselves prisoners in a Viet Cong camp. The guards force them to put a single bullet in a revolver. Spin the chamber, point at your temple, pull the trigger. The darkness is not the gunshot. The darkness is Walken's character, Nick. He survives the camp. He returns to Saigon, and he stays. He plays Russian roulette for money, for sport, for the click of an empty chamber. De Niro goes back to find him. Nick looks at his best friend and does not recognize him. The final scene is a game of chance. Nick loads the gun, spins, puts it to his head. De Niro screams, "Nick, I love you." Nick pulls the trigger. The bullet is real this time. The Deer Hunter argues that war does not end when you leave. It ends when you finally lose the will to spin the chamber. Hollywood won Oscars for this. It should have issued therapy coupons.
Number 5. Casualties of War, 1989.
What happens when Hollywood films a war crime that actually happened? Brian De Palma's Casualties of War adapts the 1966 incident on Hill 192, where a squad of American soldiers kidnapped a Vietnamese girl, raped her repeatedly, and then murdered her. Sean Penn plays Sergeant Meserve, the predator who orders the crime. Michael J. Fox plays Erickson, the only soldier who refuses. The darkness is the squad's casual evil. They pick the girl like she is fruit. They pass her around like a bottle. They shoot her in the back when she tries to run. De Palma films the rape sequence without explicit nudity, but with unbearable dread. The girl's eyes never close. She keeps asking, "Why?" in Vietnamese. No one answers. Erickson tries to stop it.
The squad beats him. They threaten to kill him. After the murder, Erickson reports the crime. The army court-martials the soldiers. Every single one gets his sentence reduced. The real-life killers serve less than a year. De Palma ends the film with a title card, then a still photograph of the real girl, then silence. The controversy was immediate. Audiences hated watching Americans play villains. German director Michael Verhoeven made his own version called OK in 1970. It shut down the Berlin Film Festival. Casualties of War remains Hollywood's most honest confession about what soldiers did when no cameras were watching. Watch it, then ask yourself why this film isn't required viewing.
Number 4, Full Metal Jacket, 1987. Is a boot camp more terrifying than combat? Stanley Kubrick proves that the answer is yes. Full Metal Jacket divides itself into two halves. The first half is Marine training under Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. Hartman bullies Private Pyle until the boy breaks. Pyle stuffs a rifle into his mouth. He kills Hartman, then he kills himself. That suicide happens in a latrine at night. The sound is a wet crack. Kubrick films it without music. Then the second half begins. Joker is in Da Nang during the Tet Offensive. He finds a sniper, a young girl. She wounds 3 of his squad. They hunt her. They shoot her. She lies on the ground begging for water. A soldier says, "She's still alive. Finish her." Joker raises his pistol. The girl says, "Shoot me." He does. Then the squad walks away singing the Mickey Mouse Club theme song. Kubrick's darkness is clinical. He films suffering like a coroner photographs bodies. With detached precision. That detachment is the horror. War becomes a joke. Death becomes a punchline. Full Metal Jacket ends with soldiers marching through Burning Hue singing "Born to Kill" while wearing peace buttons. Hollywood never made a war film that hated its own country more quietly. Number 3, Johnny Got His Gun, 1971. What if a war film had no battles, no explosions, and no enemy soldiers? Dalton Trumbo's Johnny Got His Gun is the answer. It is the darkest Hollywood war movie because it takes place entirely inside a hospital bed. Timothy Bottoms plays Joe Bonham, a WWI soldier who wakes up with no eyes, no ears, no nose, no mouth, no arms, and no legs. A shell destroyed his face and limbs, but his mind works perfectly. He can think, he can remember, he can dream, he cannot scream. The film shows his memories. A fishing trip, a girl in a sundress, his father's death. Then it cuts back to the bed. Joe learns to communicate by hitting his head on a pillow. Morse code. ... SOS. Help me. A nurse understands. She brings a priest. The priest says Joe should pray. Joe uses his head to spell out, "Kill me." The priest leaves. The nurse tries to pull Joe's breathing tube. A supervisor stops her. Joe is trapped. The final shot is Joe's face, a mask of bandages with 2 holes where his eyes used to be. He is crying. You can tell because the bandages darken. Johnny Got His Gun was banned from television for decades. Too disturbing, too honest. Trumbo directed it himself after being blacklisted for refusing to name communists. The film is his revenge. He made Hollywood watch a man drown in his own living corpse. That is darkness without escape.
Number 2, Paths of Glory, 1957. What if the real enemy in war is not across the battlefield, but sitting safely behind a polished desk? Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory is one of the most furious anti-war films Hollywood ever produced, and its darkness comes from its simplicity. French soldiers are ordered to attack an impossible German position during World War I. The mission fails because it was always going to fail, but generals do not punish themselves. They choose 3 ordinary men and accuse them of cowardice. Kirk Douglas plays Colonel Dax, the officer who tries to defend them, but the trial is a performance, and the verdict has already been written. The courtroom is colder than any trench. The generals speak of honor while preparing murder. The condemned men break in different ways. One rages, one collapses, one tries to stay dignified until fear eats through him. Then comes the execution. No glory, no music, just men tied to posts while their own army aims rifles at them. Kubrick's camera makes the injustice unbearable because everyone knows the truth and no one with power cares. The final tavern scene is devastating. Captured German girl sings to French soldiers, and the men begin to cry. For one moment, humanity returns. Then orders arrive again. Paths of Glory is dark because it proves war does not only kill bodies, it turns cowardice into policy and calls it discipline.
Number 1, Schindler's List, 1993. Can a film about salvation be the darkest war movie Hollywood ever made? Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List answers in 3 hours of black and white agony. Oskar Schindler begins as a Nazi profiteer. He ends as a man who saves 1,100 Jews. But the darkness is not Schindler. The darkness is everything around him. The liquidation of the Krakow ghetto, a girl in a red coat. She walks through carnage while bullets tear the street apart. Later, her body appears on a cart, red coat, gray ash. The shower scene where Jewish women scream as water comes out, not gas. They laugh, then cry. The camp commandant Amon Geth shoots prisoners from his balcony for target practice. He cannot kill the boy who cleans his bathtub because the boy is useful, so he pats his head. Then the next day, he shoots the boy anyway. Spielberg films these horrors without distance. The camera is a witness. The darkest moment comes at the end. Schindler collapses. He points at his car. This car, I could have saved 10 more people. His gold pin. 2 more. He weeps. The real survivors place stones on his grave. Then the screen turns to color. Then the actors walk with the real survivors. Then the film ends. No credits music, just breath. Schindler's List is dark because it tells you that one man's heroism could not outrun the factory chimney smoke. Hollywood gave Spielberg 7 Oscars. The film gave the world a question. What would you trade for a single life? The answer is everything. And that everything was not enough. These 15 films do not entertain, they accuse. They remind us that Hollywood's darkest war movies are not celebrations of victory, but autopsies of the human soul. Watch them if you must. Forget them if you can. But never pretend war is anything other than what these pictures show, a grave with no bottom.